So, Mike, super excited to have you on the show today. You have done over $1 billion in sales, and for some reason, you've decided to help new people make sales. So, I am super curious. Why are you helping these new people make sales?
Oh man, that's a really good question. The reason that I'm doing it is because I'm really like a connection junkie. I really like connecting with people, and I really get fulfilled by helping other people, and I always have. And so I've made enough money that I don't need to make a lot of money now. I like setting up the systems, with Skool, and I like learning new technology. And this is the future of selling and communication, so I like learning the whole system. But I've been retired for 20 years, so I've owned everything I want to own. I've traveled everywhere that I really want to travel, and I have done all of that stuff, and nothing is as rewarding to me as either building a company or helping someone else build a company. So that's why I gravitate back towards helping people. It just fills my soul. That's why I'm doing it.
Cool. Is there like, is there a difference between helping people who are new to a business? Like, expect a lot of people watching this would be maybe starting their first online business. Uh, are you noticing things that are like super rewarding about helping people who are totally brand new that would be maybe different than helping people who are more experienced?
For me, when I first started my business, there was a critical moment, like a fork in the road, like a life-changing moment for me, and that was when I got my first sale. And I remember going, I was so excited about having my own company. And if I go back a little bit further, I should say I spent a lot of years training to be a machinist, and I was really good at it. And I could make anything out of metal, and I could see that I wasn't making very much money working for someone else. And so what I really wanted to do is I wanted to make a lot of money and have my own company, because those were the people that were really making the money. And so when I wanted to do that and I was ready, I was really excited to go out and get my first customer. And I remember being all excited. And as I got closer and closer to the appointment, I got more and more nervous. And then I got to the company and I couldn't go in. I went to like push on the door and I had to back off, and I had to wait for like 10 minutes of pacing back and forth. And then I finally just said, I got to do it. And I pushed through and I got in there, and then I struggled through my pitch. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I just rambled on about my business. And finally, they're just like escorting me out. And I was like, oh man, that didn't go well at all. And I was actually thinking I might not be cut out for business and I might not be good at sales. But something in me said, get some training. And I ended up hiring a coach. And that coach, I learned so much in 1 month that I was able to go out and get my first customer. And when I got it, and I learned a process for selling, and when I learned that, then it was fun. I was still a little bit nervous going in because it was my first meeting, but nothing like before. I wasn't like dreading it, because now I knew what to say and questions to ask. So when I got in, and then I got my first order. It wasn't a huge order, but it was my first order. And I thought, oh, maybe I can do this. So that led to me starting my own company, which I kept studying sales and persuasion and other things about business, but really sales was the big part. And I ended up growing that into almost $100 million a year. And that changed my life. So when I meet people now that are just doing their first sale, and then they call me back and they're like, wow, I got my first sale. I can't believe it. I didn't know what to do. Or I just tripled my sales in a week or a month. For me, it's like, yeah, I just changed someone's life. So I think that's why I like to do it.
Right. Do you think there's a big difference between that first sale for somebody and like maybe making like a multi-million-dollar deal or something? Is the feeling kind of the same, or is it a bit different?
Well, I have to admit, I like all of it. The big difference is when you can really change someone's life. And I noticed, well, for me, it was just so big because if I didn't get that sale, I would have went back and just been a machinist, and I would have been, I don't know if I would have been that happy with it. I might have been. I might have tried different things, but I knew that just getting that first sale was such a big moment for me. That's what I just really like, helping people do that. Because I can afford to do it. If I had to do it for money, I would want to sell more to people that were closing the multi-million-dollar deal.
Right.
And usually when I work with people that, if I go into a company and I'm training maybe a sales team, the difference is they think they already know it all. So they've already had success, and then they do get it, and they start going, oh, this is a lot better, and the sales that they do go up, and they're happy about it. But it is a different feeling working with someone that just absolutely knows nothing to getting a foundation to do every meeting. I get a lot out of that. I also like helping companies too, but I'm pretty choosy on who I work with because, like I said before, a lot of people think they already have it down, or the CEO will hire me and the team doesn't really even want me there.
Okay. They think they don't need it.
Right.
I guess like for that first sale, for anybody that's watching this who has not yet made that first sale, and maybe they've started to put together their Skool community and they're like, oh shit, soon I'm going to have to go and actually talk with customers and make that deal happen. Like, do you have any advice for these people?
The main thing is to know that selling isn't talking. That's what I thought it was. I thought, oh, I like talking to people. Selling is actually, there's a science behind it. So if you can learn a system, it can be any system as long as it's a system where you know what you're going to say first and what questions to ask and try to, yeah, if you learn a system, like the system that we teach breaks every little piece down. So the overwhelm goes away because we break it into little chunks. So I think that was a big thing for me, is realizing that there's actually a system and there's a sales cycle. So learning the sales cycle, there's 7 key steps in that. Each one of those is really easy, but when you put it all together into the word selling, it's like overwhelming to think of it, because even though they're small chunks, 7 of them put together, plus mindset of what, the past we're bringing into it. Like we might have had a really bad experience. Maybe we bought a car or some furniture or something where someone sold us something that we really didn't want. And we get home and we're like, oh, how did this happen? I don't really want this. So we might have a handful of experiences that were bad, and that's what we think about because they were so painful. And we don't want to be known as the pushy salesperson, and we carry that with us. But there was a couple things that I like to, like mindset-wise, that helps going into that meeting, and that is, if you can understand that everything you own in your life has been sold to you. So you probably have hundreds of really good experiences, and you might have a handful of bad experiences. So just remember that not all selling is bad. If it's done in the right way, it's smooth. And I actually, when I go into a meeting, there's a couple of things that I think about. And one would just be like, I'm here to serve, not sell. So I want to keep that in mind when I go in. I don't think of selling at all. I don't think of what are the objections I have to overcome and what strategy should I use. When I go into a meeting, I try to get rid of the outcome, like detach from the outcome. And I go in thinking, how can I help this person today? What resources? I'm just going to go in and see if there's any way that I can help them. And that really just puts me to ease, because now I'm not going in there trying to sell somebody something. I'm going in, if I can solve a problem, I will.
You talked about using systems and stuff. I'm curious if you've ever just gone in and just like, have you ever just said, screw the systems, I'm just going to wing it and you see what happens? Like, have you ever done that, and how has that gone?
It never went well because, like I was saying, I learned the hard way when I was younger that talking is not selling and it's not productive. So you just burn through time with someone and you didn't have a purpose. So you have very limited time with most people that you're with.
That word purpose is interesting to me. I'm wondering, like, you mentioned like trying to serve the person who you're on the call with or who you're in person with. How does that link up with purpose? Like, is that the purpose, or is there a deeper purpose or other type of purpose that you're going into that with?
So there's two things I think about when I go in as far as the purpose. And that is, well, I wouldn't be in front of them in most cases unless there was some connection. So the first part of the sales process is prospecting. So who am I in front of? And did they contact me for a reason, or did I contact them? Right? So if I contacted them, then it's really kind of cold. But the first thing I keep in mind is trying to connect with them and build rapport. So that's the first step. If I meet with someone and they have interest in my product or service, and I get there and they just want to know the numbers, it's like they just want to get to the facts, that never goes well. So I never say, oh yeah, here's the number, and without the other steps. So I'll describe that. I will say if I give them the number, it's pretty much like giving up, and the sale is over, and I'm not going to get it.
Okay.
I don't care how pushy they are. I'm not telling them a number until I know more and connect with them. So the first step is we call it building rapport, which in my mind, I consider it making a friend. So making a friend is a skill, and most people don't know that. So that's what we teach in my course. When I talk about frameworks and stuff like that, there's a framework and actual questions that I ask and to learn about the person. I'm not asking them about business at all. And if possible, 80% of my time will be on that piece.
That's interesting.
And the reason for that is I learned, especially if it's a type of client that would be an ongoing client, not just a get this done. If it's a quick thing, like let's say if I'm selling a car, I probably wouldn't spend 80% of my time building rapport. But if it's a longer term client that would be a repeat client, then I want to know everything about them and connect with them. So I start there. So that's part of my purpose, is to meet a new friend. The next thing I try to do, then I start doing some needs analysis and try to figure out what they need, if my business can help them solve a problem. Do they have a problem that I can solve? But some of the hints come out in the first part of building rapport. I also want to say one more thing about building rapport and building a friend. People buy from their friends. So if for some reason you're able to connect with someone, so there's like 6 different ways to connect with someone deeply. And a good example I'll give you today would be finding common ground. So if you can find anything in common with people, they might have a picture in the background if it's a Zoom call, and it might be of their dog or snow skiing or whatever it is. If there's some way that you can relate to that picture, or you can research before you meet them anything about their business, even if you find something about their business and you can relate on that level, finding that common ground and building that friendship is the most important part of the whole thing. Because at the end, it's all going to come down. They're going to be like solving a problem, and it's going to be about money, and they're going to buy from the person they like the most and trust the most.
If you're building rapport, and if 80% is on rapport and making a friend, and maybe it sounds like more almost casual or more less scripted. So I'm curious, like, how strongly you would hold to a script during that
Oh,
process.
no, yeah. I don't hold to a script that at all. So my frameworks are simple. And I've simplified it down to broad questions that there might be 5, or depending on the situation. I was saying there's like 7 different steps in the sales process. Each part of it, now they might be the same questions that you ask a couple of different times because the conversation varies. But I have a whole like framework of what I'm looking for in that. And I just ask questions until I land on what I'm looking for. And that's the skill that I teach.
Have you ever used a script? Like, have you ever, like, I don't know, used scripts from other people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I've had so much training, and some people they're like into their script. And there's been times in some of the training that I did, especially cold calling people. That's a place for a script. You need, because you're just hammering out 100 calls a day, and you're trying to you're looking for that needle in a haystack, like the perfect match, the right time, the right places. So it's just a numbers game.
Okay.
But that is not a fun way to live for me. And so it's a necessary thing for a lot of businesses that someone will do that. It's just, that's not my specialty. But yes, I have used scripted stuff. And you can learn from these scripts and then learn how to improvise as you're going. So you get them memorized and you can improvise from them. Right. But what I learned was if a script works, you want to repeat it. And one thing I notice is when I sit down and I'm connecting with someone, if I can get them to laugh, now their guard's down, right? You start off like this, like, what do you want? And in the end, if you can connect and you get them to just a chuckle, or, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, that's horrible, or that's great. And you get that loose feeling. That's when you know you're making progress.
I'm curious, like, how much of it would you say is focused internally on yourself and your own emotional state, and how much of it is focused on the client or the prospect and their emotional state?
Oh, it's all about them. In that moment when I'm connecting with people, that's part of that building rapport. And one of the frameworks that we go through is how to connect with them. So, yeah, that's a big part of it.
So for people who get like really stuck in their heads, or they might get on a sales call and then get nervous and maybe start overthinking certain situations, do you have any kind of strategies for how to get out of those situations?
Overthinking. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Maybe if they made a mistake or they feel like they made a mistake, if they're on the call and they feel like, oh shit, I didn't say the right thing, or maybe I should have done something differently. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how do you stay in the moment when you're on that sales call?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of the system that I teach, that I never get off of a call and go, oh man, I should have said this. Because what that's reminding me of is kind of the old school selling, where you have a script or you're trying to convince somebody of
Right.
something, right? So that's the beauty of what I teach. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm asking them questions and they're telling me what they want. I'll give you an example of old school sales and then what I teach and why I love sales. So here's a typical thing. I had an idea, like I want to start this company, and I think you alluded to this earlier. And it's like I got everything ready. Now I've got my course is ready, right? I'm ready to go, and now I got to go talk to people. I didn't think about that. That's right. You're really close to launching, and it's like the fear just goes, oh man. So let me think. Okay, so I had too many thoughts come through my mind right
The
there.
old school way.
So, yeah, old school. Let me just get into my story and it'll explain a lot. So I'm going to give you an example of I own an ice cream company, and you own a restaurant and you need a new ice cream supplier. So you call me and you say, hey, I heard you guys are really good. I'd like to know more about your company. And I'm like, oh, great. I'll come out and visit with you. And so old school would be, I know we just won this world championship ice cream contest. And we have the best chocolate ice cream in the world. So I'm bringing that. So I go out to my customer and I bring them chocolate ice cream, and I know it's the best in the world and it's my favorite. And I give it to them. Look, check this out. I just brought you chocolate ice cream. And they look at it and they go, I'm allergic to chocolate ice cream. Sorry, can't even taste it. And that's old school. I've got something and I want to find a way for you to like it and buy it. And that's the kind of selling that'll lead to, oh, I should have said this.
Right.
And I should have said that to convince them. So my way of selling is, before I go on that meeting, I call you back and I say, hey, I'm on my way. We have 100 different flavors of ice cream, and I love chocolate. We just won the best chocolate in the world. Do you want to taste it, or is there something else that you'd like? Oh, I would love strawberry. Do you have a good strawberry? Oh, yeah, we have great strawberry. It's our top seller. So now I show up and I hand you strawberry ice cream.
Right.
100% you're going to love it, and you're going to at least like it because you got exactly what you wanted. So I didn't have to convince you of anything. I just asked you what you wanted. So when I summarize that selling technique, one of the first steps is make a friend.
Yeah.
Ask friend what they want. Then give them exactly what they want. Now I'm the hero.
Right.
And that's my whole day, every day. And that's the system that I use to double my sales every month
Yeah.
for 4 years in a row. I literally went from 100,000 a year, or yeah, my first year I did 100,000, and out of that 100,000, I was paying myself minimum wage,
Wow.
and sometimes I couldn't cash the check, right? Because that 100,000 paid for a lot of stuff, and so that series that I just went through,
Yeah.
that's how I live my life. Like I never say the wrong thing because I'm asking you, what do you want? Oh, you
Mm.
want that? Let me figure out how to get it. And
Mm.
if I don't sell it, I'm going to go figure out a way to sell it and then sell it to you, or I'm going to get it. Yeah, I'm going to solve that problem. And that is so much different than what people think sales
Right.
is.
Right.
And it takes all the pressure off. There's no fear of rejection because you're asking them what they want. And
Right.
if they tell you, now the other thing is if you're really good at making a friend, it's almost like you're a mind reader because once they like you,
Mm.
they'll open up and tell you
Mm.
everything they want.
Mm.
I call it like mind reading 101. You got to make a friend first. But if you don't get that rapport and the trust first,
Right.
and you go right into business, they still approach it like this and they'll tell you what they think you want to hear and they just want to get rid of you.
So there's a couple things I'm thinking about here. One is the authentic angle that it's making a lot more sense to me now, why that's so important. But I think the thing that I'm even more curious about is the offer side of things. So if the old school way is to like, I have chocolate ice cream, can I convince you to buy my chocolate ice cream? And the new
Yeah.
school way is, okay, let me find it and understand what you need and then help you get what you need. How much room do you have to have on the call or with the client to shift your offer to deliver them something new, like custom?
Not sure. Like, give
Like,
me an example.
I guess it's like, so if, for example, I'm trying to sell my course, and the course is a specific price, and I have, it comes with certain services. Maybe it comes with a couple calls a month or something like this. And I'm on the call with the client, and I'm trying to understand or with the prospect, and I'm trying to understand what they actually need. And if they tell me, like, oh, I actually don't need a call a month, I need something else, like, how how much flexibility do you think somebody needs to have in shifting their offer for the person that they're talking to, or is it more about helping the person understand how the offer can help them?
Gotcha. The first part is being really clear on the problem that you're solving and really clear on how much pain they have from it. Because if you're really clear on the problem, you wouldn't offer a solution that didn't solve that problem.
Right.
So so maybe there's only 50% of what you're offering that they really need out of your package. But that's the package, right? And there's a couple of different ways to look at it, and it just really depends on the size of the package of how big of a problem is this.
Right.
So when I owned the machine shop, it was all custom, so there wasn't a standard. There was more of an hourly rate. So it was just like, how can I solve this for them, and how many hours is it going to take? If it's a package like something that you're doing, then it would be, I don't know that I would change it unless most people are wanting it changed. Or you're learning that something isn't needed.
Right.
Yeah. I
So
don't know
like
if that answered it good enough for you.
yeah, no, that's cool. I think it's like if you're on the call with somebody and they're like, I want this part of what you're doing, but I'm not sure that this part of it is for me. I guess I feel like maybe that would be the time when people would start trying to convince others that that's what they need. Like, how
Mm.
do you kind of double down there and try to understand more about the root of the problem that they're going with, or do you, try to shift what you're doing to try to accommodate them? Like, I think sometimes people on sales calls try to fit people into the box, like, a round circle into a square hole, or what, whatever that analogy is.
Do you feel like if they say, "Oh, I don't know if I need that piece," do you feel that they need that piece?
Hmm.
Because sometimes people don't know what they need.
Right.
So, and to sell them, you don't always have to give them every piece that, like well, you can describe it, but the main thing, at least in the very beginning, is the concept of, let's say you want to help increase their YouTube views, and you're working on that. So really what you're selling is you have a system to help people solve this problem, and you have proof that you've done it before. And so do they want to give your system a try?
Right.
And because they're not going to know if it works or not until they try it. And you might have some kind of guarantee, like, I know my system works and it's going to require you to do these certain things, but you don't need to know what I'm doing to make it happen. So when I had my machine shop, and people would ask, my customers would even ask me, well, how long does it take you to make that part? I would never tell them that. Or how are you going to make it? No, that's my secret sauce. I'm not telling you. I can tell you, if you work with me, let's say we're doing YouTube videos. If you work with me, I'm going to at least quadruple the number of views that you have this month. And then, I'll prove myself to you over this first month that I'm going to improve this. I'm not telling them exactly how I'm doing it. I'm just telling them this is the result that you're going to get if you work with me. And if at the end of the month I haven't hit this result, then you don't have to pay me.
That makes sense. So I guess it's like part of that then, rather than trying to, force them to understand that what you're selling is the thing that they need, it's like going on the angle of like, I can prove it, like I'll prove it to you, and maybe I don't know, finding some way of getting that demo for them, or some kind of evidence to show them that even though they don't think what you're doing is the thing that they need, trying to show them that like you have evidence that it will actually work for them.
Yeah, that's how the devil's in the detail on anything, right? Every company is a little different in what is important to show people, and do you have to show them every detail? Or what I learned is that the more detail I give someone, the less likely they're going to buy. So
That's interesting.
it's a weird thing, but if someone asks me how, exactly how are you going to increase our sales, then I'm not going to explain every detail to them, because they're not going to buy if I explain it to them and get them all confused anyway.
Right.
That's why I'll just say, well, let's do this. How about we come up with a target? What is the goal that you want for this month? And I will hit that target. If I can hit that target, this is what it's going to cost. Then they'll either say yes or no.
Right.
But I can't say that I won't tell them anything, but I definitely don't want to give them all the detail. I want to talk about the results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense, because if you are talking with somebody who's potentially interested in your product and you give them the details, then every detail is probably one more thing that they could be doubting or bringing up questions around.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. It's like every time there's And there's always a detail I want to tell them. Oh, if I tell them this, they're going to love it. And then it's another detail. I go, oh, yeah, you just nailed it. Less details, the better. It's almost like sometimes I joke around, like if I'm really connected with someone and they have a big problem, I'll be like, it's like magic. You just write a check and the problem goes away. That's
It's old.
yeah, right. It's like, oh, you want to make $100,000 this year? Okay, you give me 10,000. I'll give you 100,000 by the end of the year.
Good deal.
Because I know I can do that.
So another question that I have in my mind is around like having hard conversations in the sale, because I know that you've talked a lot about making a friend and getting them to laugh and this kind of positive energy, but I know that I've been on some tough kind of sales calls on both ends where it's like maybe there is a hard truth or something that somebody needs to hear, and though I think those situations can be kind of tricky because it's, if you're on the selling end, then it's like this person has some kind of block and I want to be honest with them about what I'm seeing. But on the other hand, if you're, you don't want to be pushing and pressuring somebody into making a sale. So like, how do you feel about those kinds of more edgy or challenging conversations on sales calls? Is that appropriate for that situation?
What I found is if you go into like convincing mode, you've already lost the sale anyway. Usually.
But what if it's not convincing? What if it's like you really, well, I guess maybe that is convincing. It's like if you think that you see something the other person doesn't, maybe they're just not ready to see that. But if you try to pressure them if you try to push that, I can imagine like having a really tough conversation with a colleague or a tough conversation with a partner. Do you think that there's ever a place for having a tough conversation with a prospect?
Depends on the rapport that you have. If you have a strong connection with them. But usually what happens is, in fact, this just happened. It was really interesting last week. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I was training someone and they used my exact script, not script, but my framework. And they went through and they were asking questions around work. And the person, their answers, they recorded it, so I got to see it. And as they went through it, every question they asked the person, they're like, oh, no, I've got that handled, no problem. Yeah, it's completely handled. And so you could go in and say, you don't have it handled. How many people are coming in? Oh, what do you call that handled?
Right.
But instead, what they did is they went through, they asked the questions. So like, how do you feel about your conversion rate or something like that? Oh yeah, I've got that handled. I've got this thing I'm working on. I don't really need you to help me with that. And in the end, because they didn't push on it and they just left it as a question and just said, hey, I want to let you know that if for some reason your conversions are not working the way you want, give me a call. And that's what I specialize in. So, and guess what? They called 2 days later.
Yeah.
But if they would have tried to solve that problem on the phone and convinced them, they would have never been able to get hired. Because you can't convince anybody of anything. You have to ask them questions until they see it. And when they see it, then you can answer it for them.
This feels like such a different way of doing selling than we normally hear. Like you got to hire the killers. You got to get the people who are really like, can you be a killer and also have this kind of more laid back rapport building, waiting for the client type of attitude? Are they possible to have together, or are they totally different ways of doing sales?
I've done both. And what I found was if you need to be the killer and you need to, there are some businesses that are just a little more cutthroat because you have one chance to meet with someone out of the blue shows up, and you got to do everything you can. Otherwise, you'll never see them again. That's how some people feel.
Right.
And some businesses are a little bit more like that, and it's more price. But then I would just change my business because I don't want to live like that. Some people, they're the Wolf of Wall Street, right? It's like, yeah, let's go and let's make calls and let's like close, multi-million-dollar deals over the phone today. I've done that and I hated it. So I guess my message to people is selling is supposed to be the most fun job in the world, or I wouldn't do it. So when I was describing the ice cream company, imagine making a friend, asking them what they want, being able to solve that solution for them, problem for them, and then you're the hero and you get paid for it. And in the company, any company that you work at in sales, you're probably one of the highest paid people in the company. And they send you on trips if you do a good job. And really closing more and making more money it's really a function of setting up your routine. So you have a routine, like I talk to this many people. I never say, I'm going to make so much money this week or this month, because that doesn't help me at all. It just makes me feel bad if I don't hit my target. But what I'll change it over to is how many calls, how many outreach, how many people am I going to connect with today? Is it 5? Is it 50? Whatever it is. And then I don't even say how many people I start there. How many people do I need to talk to get a certain number of sales? But it really comes down to my calendar, like a certain number of time. From 10 to 12, I'm going to call people. Or from 5 in the morning to 7, because that's when a lot of CEOs are at work before everyone else, and they might answer the phone. So if I'm going to do cold calling at all anymore, it would be early in the morning. I go by amount of time, and I said, I'm going to do it for this amount of time. I'm going to call as many people as I can, and I'm not allowed to do anything else. I can't check text, email. I'm just doing this task. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah.
Started rambling.
No, that's good. So I have a few things that I'm still curious about. One of them is about the offer. And even more about I guess the product that you're delivering. So if you're getting on this call, and how important is it that you believe in the thing that you're actually selling? Can you just kind of fake it till you make it? Because when you start, maybe what you're selling isn't going to be the best thing on the market. So are you honest with the client about that, or with the prospect about that? Or do you just kind of over embellish what you're doing?
So it really comes down to, I wouldn't sell a product that I don't believe or trust in. And and sometimes you don't know until you try to sell it and you see, does the company actually perform? So if they don't perform, then you have to look for another job. So because if you believe in it, you're just going to sell a lot more of it. And just because you feel like this is really going to help somebody. So one of the things I like to, I usually show a picture, but I'll describe it. And maybe you've seen it, but there's a pretty famous picture out there where there's a tent sitting on the top of a hill, and down in the valley, there's a war going on, like an olden day bows and arrows war.
Okay.
And someone rolls up the backside with a machine gun, and they knock on the tent, and they're like, and the guy inside, the captain's like, "Go away, can't you see I'm busy here?"
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but if you had my machine gun, you wouldn't be busy, you'd be done, right? So I like to come to a knife fight with a gun. So that's what I want to sell.
Right.
If I don't have the experience to come in and sell the best thing in the industry, I want to be in the top 3 at least. Or if I'm not skilled enough yet, then I go sell anything. And then my job becomes getting that job. So an example is there's someone that I met just graduated college, and they didn't know what they wanted to do, but they thought they wanted to do sales. So we looked at all kinds of different stuff, and they wanted to work for Salesforce. Well, I helped them weed that out because Salesforce is a really good company. They're at least in the top 3 at what they do. And so, but they couldn't get that job because they just got out of college and they just didn't know how to, they didn't have any experience yet. So we made a plan. The plan was to get that job. So I think it took about a year, but we went out and got any sales job. And almost exactly what you're saying. They didn't totally believe in it, but they said, well, I'll try it. They got hired at a software company. But over time, they realized that they didn't have a good sales process. He couldn't learn anything from this guy. And if he came in with my training, they wouldn't let him use it.
Oh.
It was so bad. It was terrible. But he had the job. I think he had the job for 6 months, but it took him 3 to 6 months to get the job. Once he got it, he was like, oh man, I finally got this software sales job and I'm getting software sales experience. So the first job was just a stepping stone to get the next job. And then he just got hired at Salesforce last week.
Nice.
So sometimes it's a process. It's like if you don't have a plan for your business, your plan is to make a plan.
Right.
If you don't have a job, your job is to get a job.
Right.
So that's what happened. It was like, this is where I want to be. What does it take to get there? And then we make a plan. I work with people on that too. It's like, if you really want to be doing this thing, let's make a plan to get you there.
So what about Skool? Let's go to Skool. Why did you decide to do this on this platform?
Oh, well, I'm a big believer of Alex Hormozy. I really like the guy. And he has, I wouldn't say it's a similar story to mine, but I guess it kind of is. He started with a gym and it was hard work and he figured out a lot about general business, and then he helped people learn more about sales and business from what he learned on growing that and then turning it into gym rescue, and then generally helping other businesses and partnering with them. So my story is kind of the same. So that's really why I came to Skool, and I'm still learning how it works. I'm still a rookie on Skool, but I'm a fan because the community and the people that I'm meeting on there, it's just better experience than other things I've done. Everything else, I felt more alone out there. But I've always had coaches, but I noticed that on Skool, it seems really good for, I don't know if I have this right, but it seems really good for a person starting out. Because the community aspect of it is so helpful for someone starting out. And so even though I'm really good at what I do, I'm still new to building an online business. So I feel like some of the help that I've got on Skool has been some great help.
Cool. I'm curious about what you are most excited about in terms of your own Skool communities that you're building.
I'm still working on what the exact, there's always going to be a sales part of it because that's my background. But my goal because that's the beginning. If you feel comfortable and you go and you can sell something, Now you want to take your business to the next level. Because I've built multiple types of businesses, I really look forward to getting people from 0 to 100 grand a year that first year. And that's, I think, what the community is going to be about. I can also take them much higher than that, but that first 100,000 is where you prove out your business for yourself and learn for yourself, like, this is what I want to do. And so I want to help people figure that out.
Cool. Well, Mike, I'm looking forward personally to seeing more about your community, and thanks for the chat today.
All right. Thanks a lot.